But as always, let's focus on three big things. And we start with a look ahead to Friday night's game between Kansas and North Carolina in Chapel Hill, which is simply awesome for the sport to have two brands of this magnitude going head-to-head in an on-campus environment. Hats off to Bill Self. Hats off to Hubert Davis once again for making the series come to fruition. And if you look at the makeup of this game, even though it's Kansas and Carolina, even though it's two of the blue blood programs of the sport, a lot of players that will be at the epicenter of this game on Friday night will be going through things with their respective teams for the first time as a member of those programs. The only player on Kansas that has played in a meaningful game in a Kansas uniform is Flory Badunga. The only player on North Carolina that has played in a meaningful game for the Tar Heels is Seth Trimble. And I'll say this, and I think it's a real storyline when you look at the dynamics surrounding everything that's going on around North Carolina this season. This is a really important game for Hubert Davis. And it's really important for North Carolina early in the season to show tangible progress after the offseason improvements that it aimed to make in the transfer portal and also internationally. Why is this such an important game for Hubert Davis? It is very difficult in college basketball once you lose momentum as a program to get it back. It is very difficult in this climate for people to have a lot of patience in any type of situation when you're dealing with a blue blood program. We have seen it throughout the sport. If you are not getting results at a time where you can immediately turn over your roster every single year, the appetite for apathy increases. Now, I'll say this, and I said this to Hubert Davis, who was on this podcast last week. Hubert Davis has been the head coach for 4 years at North Carolina. 2 of those 4 years, North Carolina has been in position to go to the Final Four and win a national championship. First season, North Carolina goes to the national title game, loses to Kansas, beat Duke in the Final Four. Obviously, an epic run for Hubert Davis, which really started in Coach K's last home game at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And then it's ironic because the last win during that run was the epic win over Duke in the national semifinals. So year one for Hubert Davis turned into a run to remember. Now, that North Carolina team brought back everybody of significance from the team that had a convincing lead over Kansas midway through the national title game in 2022. R.J. Davis, Leaky Black, Caleb Love, and Armando Bacot were all back. Armando Bacot, again, was somebody who was a longtime North Carolina stalwart in the post. Brady Manick didn't come back. Pete Nance, a grad transfer from Northwestern, came, and North Carolina's rhythm and chemistry was never the same, even though it started the season as the consensus preseason number 1 team in the sport. Tar Heels missed the NCAA tournament. Hubert Davis' third year, R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot anchor a team that was a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament and just lost a very difficult game in the Sweet 16 to a very good Alabama team. It happens. It's part of the NCAA tournament. And then last year, North Carolina struggled for the majority of the season to be a consistent presence in the college basketball landscape. North Carolina found a way to get into the NCAA tournament, won a first 4 game against San Diego State. But it's not okay in this climate for blue blood programs just to be okay. And for North Carolina and for Hubert Davis, this is a game you've got to win at home. This is a game you have to send a message to your fan base, because I was in Chapel Hill during the preseason. We obviously talked to North Carolina's head coach, Hubert Davis, on this podcast last week. This is an opportunity to show everybody that the revamped roster you put together can win against a quality opponent. Now, I also want to say this. Kansas and this nucleus of players that Bill Self has put together, headlined by Darren Peterson, the talented freshman who's firmly in the mix to be the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. Kansas is also going to learn a lot about itself on Friday night. Because I know Kansas went on the road in Louisville, won an exhibition game. I know Kansas on Monday night beat Green Bay at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. None of that matters. None of it matters. Nobody remembers who won an exhibition game 2 months from now. It's all about learning in a hostile environment what you're going to be able to do. I said on an off-season edition of Inside College Basketball Now that if you're evaluating everything on returning personnel, Kansas would not be viewed as a top 5 team in the Big 12 entering the season. Kansas was picked 6th in the Big 12 preseason poll. If that narrative is going to change, we are going to need to see something from Kansas and Darren Peterson in this type of an environment. Now, I'm not saying Darren Peterson is not a ridiculous talent. I'm not saying Darren Peterson is not somebody that could be an absolute star at the next level and be a first-team All-American this year. But we don't know yet if Darren Peterson is going to be good enough in his second college game to go on the road and lead Kansas to a win against North Carolina and Chapel Hill. And also, being in Lawrence during the preseason, the biggest concern that the Kansas staff has entering this year with a talent like Darren Peterson is that he has enough help around him. And I can tell you right now, I have a lot of confidence that Darren Peterson is going to produce on Friday night in Chapel Hill. First big road game for Cole Rosario as well, who reclassed to come to Kansas. Flory Badunga is now a marked man. He is going to have to go against the size and the length inside of Henry Vasar and Caleb Wilson, who, again, is somebody who is a talented freshman who had 22 in North Carolina's opener, who is not getting the same attention as other elite freshmen, but could start to join the conversation after this game. And I'll tell the story, and I'll tell it all season. When I was in Chapel Hill before the season, I was talking to a longtime, well-embedded mole in North Carolina's athletic department. And he said to me, John, I'm not saying Caleb Wilson is going to be Marvin Williams, but I will say this. Caleb Wilson really reminds me of Marvin Williams. I'm not saying he's going to be the number 2 pick in the draft like Marvin Williams was in 2005, but he looks like him. He plays like him a little bit. And I think by 9:30 on Friday night, part of the vernacular of college basketball could be that Caleb Wilson is joining the party when we talk about the Bansa, Darren Peterson, Koa Pete, and all these terrific freshmen, Cam Boozer included, from Duke. This is a big-time game for college basketball. It's a litmus test for Kansas to go on the road. And if you are a basketball Benny and you are somebody who lives for the intricacies of the sport, one of the things that Hubert Davis told me in talking to him multiple times in the preseason was North Carolina needed positional size and length at a different level than it had last year. So keep an eye on the different guys that get time defensively on Darren Peterson, whether it's Seth Trimble, whether it's Jonathan Powell, Luka Bogovac, who was just cleared on Monday night for North Carolina, who obviously North Carolina thinks is eventually going to be potentially a starter, is another guy who's going to be on the perimeter. And I'm curious to see how Bill Self with Flory Badunga matches up against a North Carolina front line with Wilson, with Vasar, with Zayden High, with players, again, who are built as more traditional bigs. And that's the interesting thing to me about the makeup of this North Carolina team, because you look at North Carolina and the way North Carolina is built with Caleb Wilson, with Henry Vasar, it's built much more like a Roy Williams type team than the teams we've seen under Hubert Davis. But make no mistake about it, North Carolina, 2 of the 4 years under Hubert Davis, has had a chance to play for a national championship. North Carolina needs to get back to being in that mix. And to do that with this North Carolina team, it's got to be a great defensive team. It's got to be a great rebounding team. And it needs its front line to overwhelm people. And at the epicenter of that is Caleb Wilson. And going into this game, everybody is going to put Darren Peterson in bold print. But it would not shock me from what I saw in the preseason, what I saw clips of on Monday night, and what I saw when North Carolina played at BYU, if after the game on Friday night, America is talking about Caleb Wilson, much like it was talking about Arizona's Koa Pete after Arizona beat Florida on Monday night in Las Vegas. An awesome, awesome early season matchup, but another big opportunity for Hubert Davis to show tangible progress that the Tar Heels are heading back in the proper direction. You look at North Carolina's non-conference schedule. North Carolina's got Kansas at home. North Carolina is also going to play Michigan State in Florida, neutral site game on Thanksgiving. There's a home game against an improved Georgetown team with Ed Cooley. There's also a road game at Kentucky as part of the ACC SEC Challenge. And then there's Ohio State in the CBS Sports Classic. Carolina's got to get, and I think is capable of getting, the lion's share of those games to be back to being vintage Carolina. For Hubert Davis and Carolina to do that, you win the basketball game at home Friday night in Chapel Hill.